Hey guys, I'm MeeMee and I do Allsorts, and as you can see I've got into a menagerie of different products here. And this time I wanted to do something a bit different, and I'm actually going to be working on a resin project. And I've actually been wanting to do this one for quite some time, which is actually the Gummi phone from Kingdom Hearts. Now I actually got this from the Kingdom Hearts Disney box from Sophie and Toffee a few months ago, and honestly I absolutely love the box. And I did the Kingdom Key and did the Wayfinder, I did a couple of other things, and now I want to actually do the Gummi phone. You know, it's something a bit different, it's a bigger project to what I'm used to, and there's actually like 4 different parts to it. So this is like a 4-piece mould, which I have never actually done before. So I've got like the back piece on the right, I've got the front piece on the left, I've got like the separating for in between the phone, and I've got like the locking mechanisms, I suppose, so the whole thing doesn't fall apart. And this one, which you can't really see, you can actually make cards to actually go inside the phone and, you know, and change them about, which I thought was a really neat idea. And when making those cards, I've actually gotten some, like a lot of films here, which I can use to customize like my own cards and all sorts. So I'm just going to have like a load of fun with it. Yeah, I'm not making like a full tutorial about this. It's just going to be like something fun for me to do, maybe something fun for you to watch if you want to go on to Sophie and Toffee and get your own. And by the way, I'm not sponsored, not affiliated, and I'm not a resin expert in them, but I am actually finding that and do enjoy doing these things. So I'm going to use them different resins. I've gone to normal UV resin, which you use the UV lights on, you know, and for like the smaller areas. And then I'm going to be using this epoxy resin, which I am not looking forward to, simply because you can't use the UV light on them. They have to like air dry in like natural sunlight, but unfortunately I don't have the luxury of that right now. It's been raining for the past 7 weeks, I am not kidding, and I literally do not have anywhere in my flat to put this, especially knowing somewhere when the light can actually penetrate it. So this is going to be interesting. And then I've got crystal LED UV resin, which will make like a little bevel on top, you know, and then of course I've got my mica powders. These ones did actually come from the museum. That's what I'm planning, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to shut up and get started, and I hope you enjoy the video. Oh my god guys, I can't believe this. Now what I've done is, and for the bit underneath this and the silver one here, I use UV resin. Now for some reason I can't cure UV resin fully, and always feels very tacky afterwards, even though then I'm like over baked in about 10 minutes as opposed to 30 seconds it takes to cure it under UV light. I think it's because I'm putting in way too much mica powder in, which I'm still trying, so it is still a bit tacky. But what I've done here is, you've seen me do, I've done these yellow bits, and I've actually done this with the AB resin 1:1 ratio. So 12 hours later, and it's actually hardened. And it doesn't even feel tacky either, it just feels super smooth. So I'm so stoked about that. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to continue using the AB resin, to do the rest of it. Now I actually need to go back and watch a few more videos because these are actually done in stages, and you can't really tell, but they are sort of like little tiny fill lines, and you can't really tell, but they are like little tiny fill lines in the moulds. So it just like separates the different parts. But for now this is working, and honestly guys, I could not be happier with how it's going so far, especially the fact that, like I said, the AB resin actually cured in my flat. Nothing cures in my flat. Right, so I'm actually looking forward to doing the next bit, so let's get rolling. And by the way, I've put less pigments in these, so maybe that's why it's not as tacky. And the yellow is actually very translucent, and the black I can't really tell until I've actually got it down. Alright, and here we can go on the final Gummi form. Now I have to admit that this was actually an experience. I have learned a lot and there's still an awful lot to learn, especially with the UV resin and like the tiny little details, but for the most part I used epoxy resin, which I think came out really great. So this is what the front looks like, and this is the back. The camera is showing the colours being like really bright and saturated, but in real life it's actually a lot more desaturated, and that's like due to inexperience and the fact that I didn't use as much pigment. I mean, if you've seen these little bits here, they're a bit more saturated than say that. That's because I didn't use a lot of pigments. I'm not that experienced with resin, so I'm still learning as I go. And honestly, for trying moulds, and I've never used beam before, and especially with so many little details, something that you can actually see in just my fingers, but there's so many little details in these, and it was actually quite hard for me to figure out which order to do things in and how much resin I could use before and spilled into the next part and have done like there. Now I have to admit that this really does look like a hot mess, but like I said, it's my first time trying to figure out how to use things. Now I would like to point out as well that these spikes are meant to be yellow, but I didn't know exactly how much resin to put in, but like I said, I didn't know like the order of the different levels of details to do it in. And I also didn't know how much resin I had to put in the mould to make it really full, because, you know, even in just these spikes and then like really hollowed down because the resin had either shrunk or there wasn't a lot of resin in it. But yeah, other than that, not bad for the first try. Assembling was quite interesting. As you saw, I had like a very long bit to go around these sides, and they're not exactly that flush. I mean, as you can see then, the bottom is not flush between these two, but that again, it's because the top and bottom moulds weren't full enough. I mean, I don't know if you can see them, but there is actually a ridge on the side where the mould hadn't been full enough, and you can see that it's curling up quite a bit, which I don't think is meant to happen. So because of that, there are a few gaps everywhere and nothing's lining up properly, but it still functions. What do I mean by that? Well, I actually made some cards. This is a neat little feature that you can make from the Gummi form. And so there's like a gap in there, so you can customise your own little cards to put in. So as you can see, I made 4 of them. Did go a little bit OTT with them, and as you can see, each one of them is a hot mess, but they do go in like the order of experimenting. So the Sora one, as you can see, it just looks awful. Here I didn't know what I was doing. The names and the pictures, I did cut out like these film sheets, and I didn't know how they were going to react with the UV resin, which I used as a glue just to, you know, set the name in. Like I said, I didn't know how it was going to react, and the film did actually pick up, and oh, it was an absolute hot mess. So I did do a lot of experimenting with this one. Again, with the moulds, I was really inexperienced with it. Other examples that I've seen online, you know, you could pick out the individual features, but this was already taking me so long to do. Then just went in with like one colour, and you know, adding like other embellishments that I had. I added bits of glitter and some little embellishments that I had lying around, you know, just to jazz it up a little bit. That one's the Sora one, and then the next one I did was Kyrie. As you can see, it is actually quite see-through, and every inch of this is done in glitter, bring it out a bit, and some more embellishment. Then I decided to go back to black with Riku. This one turned out a lot better than the Sora one, and it's a bit more minimalistic than whatever that is, but I think it actually quite works. I'm just a little bit disappointed that you can't really see the picture properly. And then last but not least, we have a little heartless. Again, quite simplistic, and this one I'm just did in plain epoxy resin. I didn't want to go too fancy with this one, you know, and I even went a little bit spare with the embellishments, but I'm thinking it just seems to work out really well. So now we get to see what them actually look like in the phone. Okay, and there's Sora. Obviously you can see his name behind the button. And then Kyrie. I'm sorry that this is like super reflective and you can see my camera. And then there's Riku. And last but not least, the Heartless. Now I have to admit, I'm actually a bit disappointed that I've done all of this embellishment work and you can't see any of it, especially when all of the embellishments and like up there, you can't see them in the phone. So yeah, that's everything. Like I said, I had so much fun doing this. It was something different, something that I've never done before, and it's literally the biggest project that I've done. It was a huge learning curve, and now I know that I love working with the epoxy resin because even though it took the longest, which was like 12 hours to cure, it came out with way better results. Nothing is sticky, but because I like to swap between things and projects and stuff, and it was just nice to mix up the resin, mix up the colour, pop it in the mould and just toss it to one side to cure. It was perfect, but it was actually quite annoying that it took me like 2 weeks to do everything because I just left everything for 24 hours just to be on the safe side. Honestly, even if I had time and I had more epoxy resin, because all of this did actually take up about, I'd say the equivalent of 3 bottles. So yeah, if I have a little bit more time and some more epoxy resin, I would love to try and redo this phone because it is a hot mess. You know, and yes, it functions, but I would love to make a lot of changes to this, like making these spikes yellow and putting more powders in, like the yellow bits of the black, fixing whatever this is. I mean, you can, so there is an awful lot of improvement, but like I say, it functions, so I'm not mad about that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. So if you guys are actually interested in making your own resin projects, like I said, this box was from Sophie and Toffee, and this was a part of the Disney boxes, so they're not doing this particular box anymore, but you can actually buy the molds and the films and anything else from their shop. So if you want to have a look in that, I will leave a link in the description box below. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.